What's up you guys, I'm Dan, this is Frugal Not Cheap, and today we'll check in and see what's going on with Facebook's Diem cryptocurrency. So some of you might know, Facebook a while ago tried to launch a cryptocurrency called Libra. There was a lot of pushback from regulators, and they then rebranded it as Diem. And I made a video earlier this year talking about that rebrand and the possible launch, because actually at the time that Libra was announced, I got really excited about the idea of potentially a global cryptocurrency that would actually be used by individuals for peer-to-peer transfers and to pay for goods and services. But of course this posed a real threat to central banks, and there were some issues that regulators had as well with the proposal at the time. So what is it though? So Diem is a cryptocurrency. The person in charge of all of this is the head of Facebook Financial, or F2, a guy named David Marcus. So there are actually two components to this. There's the wallet where you have your money, and then there's the actual currency that we're using, and it is a cryptocurrency. So the wallet is called Novi, used to be called Calibra, and then the currency is called Diem, used to be called Libra. So you had Libra and Calibra, now you've got Diem for the cryptocurrency and Novi for the wallet. Diem meaning like day, and then Novi meaning new, right? So we're just Latin words again. But anyway, the Diem cryptocurrency is pretty cool in my opinion. It would allow to serve a lot of people that are currently unbanked. It's one of the first things that comes up when you look at the Diem Association page. There are a lot of people out there that don't have traditional bank accounts, and so it would be a much lower bar for them to get set up on a Novi wallet and then be able to use the Diem cryptocurrency. And then it's also designed to have free peer-to-peer transfers, so you could transfer money between your friends at no cost. That's already something that you can do with Venmo and PayPal. But the other sort of more disruptive part would be that they're partnering with merchants as well in order to undercut existing payment processors and to allow for lower transactions cost on the merchant side as well. And that's where, of course, Diem would make some money. And then the big part is also for them to not only do the domestic peer-to-peer transfers, but also international peer-to-peer transfers as well. So that can be a really big advent. I think I go a little bit more into detail about the Diem cryptocurrency, and really not much of the plan has changed since that time in my last video. But a couple of quick things. It is a lot more efficient than Bitcoin, and it also is a lot more scalable than Bitcoin. So if you've seen my Bitcoin video, I'll link my Bitcoin video in the description below, as well as my video on Diem from earlier this year. You know that one of my issues with Bitcoin is the ledger. This thing keeps getting longer and longer, and it's just not all that efficient or scalable for doing transactions. And of course you can do layering and some different kind of ways around it, but at its core the technology is not really set up to do that all that well. Whereas the way that Diem works is going to be much more scalable, where a lot of this sort of back information is archived and you're able to impute the previous states, but it's not something that is carried over from transaction to transaction quite as much, so it's a lot more efficient and scalable. And there's a lot of detail about this in the white paper. And I'll be frank, you know, a lot of this is a little bit beyond me. My interest in this is, well, I'm in the financial sector, I'm a derivatives trader, and then also my background is in economics, and so I'm looking at this from that perspective. All right, so I think it's a much better suited technology than Bitcoin is in terms of facilitating tons of transactions globally, right, at a very rapid rate. The other thing about it is, and the other big thing that I really don't think makes sense for Bitcoin in terms of being used as money, in terms of actually buying goods and services and all that, is volatility. Bitcoin valuations are all over the place. That's why people get into Bitcoin, is they're hoping to speculate and make money. Well, that's not at all what you want in a currency, something that you're actually using to buy for stuff, right? Where the value if the value can fluctuate that much day to day, that's just no good. With Diem, we're talking about a stablecoin. This is, in other words, it's going to be tied to the value of the US dollar. But, and this is a really important point, unlike a lot of stable coins out there where you're not really sure about how well they're backed, right? There have been, some, I think Coffeezilla did some interesting videos about Tether, I guess. Anyway, This one would be backed one-to-one. So there's going to be a one-to-one reserve, and much of that is going to be highly liquid. Everything's going to be relatively liquid, right? That's backing that. But they do have some statements about how much is going to be, super liquid, and how much is going to be in sort of these short-term assets, but all of it, very, very liquid. But that's not as far as they're going. They're going beyond having just that one-to-one. They also realize that they might have some short-term interest costs or other things that could happen, and so they need also a capital buffer. And the Diem Association is open to receiving input from regulators on how big that capital buffer should be. I think in the work that they did earlier this year, they were talking about using some this Basel framework in order to set some of those standards. All right, so it all sounds great, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm really excited about. So what was the problem, and where are we today? The big problem, of course, was that they wanted to, Facebook has a huge reach, billions of potential users, right? And they were originally going to launch a multi-currency coin. So it was going to be a single coin that's backed by a basket of other currencies, right? And as soon as central banks heard that, they said, nah, because that means that they're no longer able to control the size of the monetary base directly. You've now got this new currency that's out there that's backed by the currencies of various central banks, not just theirs, and that could have really, really rapid and widespread adoption. So very, very bad for them. So to put it in concrete terms, the way that the U.S. central bank, for instance, can affect interest rates, one way to do it is by buying or selling bonds. And as they buy bonds, they're injecting money into the system, increasing the monetary base, because of course they have to buy the bonds from people with money. And then they can also reduce the size of the monetary base by selling bonds. So by selling these bonds, they give the bonds out into the financial system, and they suck up dollars into their ledger, and thereby reduce the size of the money supply. And the money supply is inversely related to interest rates, so as you increase the money supply, then interest rates tend to fall, and vice versa, and that's how they can affect interest rates. One way that they can do it. They have other tools like the overnight window and reserve ratios and whatnot, and then now they're doing QE, which people think is money printing, but isn't really. Anyway, there's lots of tools, but the size of the money supply is a very important tool, and is something that they would no longer have as much direct control over if there had been this adoption of a multi-currency cryptocurrency right off the bat. So they pushed back, and now Facebook is going to launch instead stablecoins. So they're going to launch a dollar stablecoin, they're going to launch a euro stablecoin, and I think they're going to launch a yen stablecoin. So of course these are the three sort of most safe haven or trustworthy currencies out there in the world, I should say, and so it makes sense that they would start with these. Now they do, by the way, and I don't know if they should really keep this up on their site, still show some plans for possible multi-currency stuff in the future, but for now, they're going to have to get things out there in a way that appeases regulators. So they're going to do that with these single currency stable coins. And then the final piece that they've also addressed that regulators, of course, would like to see is know your counterparty type stuff. So in other words, anti-money laundering, anti-illicit activity type of frameworks. And so what we have there is basically anyone that wants to set up a Novi wallet can't do so anonymously. So unlike Bitcoin, you're going to have to show some some government issued ID in order to get your Novi wallet set up, and then thereby, you have a platform now to engage in transactions. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. That's my feeling. I know maybe other people have a different feeling about, this whole anonymous banking and wada, but let's be realistic, right? We want to be able to catch criminals. I know cash is anonymous and you lose a little bit of that, but I mean, it's just, come on. If I'm not doing illegal things, this isn't something that I need to be concerned about. I think it's taking it too far to, well, anyway, let's not get into the weeds on that, but I think it's fine. So I've read that some of the feedback that the Diem Association has gotten back from regulators has been that the new framework is positive, and David Marcus has been to Washington recently to kind of present this again and try to get the ball rolling again. and they do plan to launch it by the end of the year. Now, he has said that it is possible that they could launch the Novi wallet first and then the Diem cryptocurrency afterwards, but they're really averse to doing that, and of course they don't want to have to do that. So we shall see. I'm really excited about the prospect of this. I think it would be great to have lower transactions costs and kind of connect people globally in terms of their ability to do remittances at no cost. And also reducing fees throughout the system, I think, is a great thing as well. And then eventually though, there is this idea that maybe we could end up having a global single currency that's kind of tied to the basket of the other currencies, and who knows, it could even supplant them eventually. That's really out there. Regulators are obviously going to fight that very, very hard if we ever start moving in that direction. But the way that the euro is a unifying thing for the European Union and the area, sad to see, of course, that Britain left when that happened. I think that a global currency could be a really unifying thing for us as well. Obviously, it has drawbacks. It removes a lot of the monetary policy tools out there, but we'd still be left with fiscal policy and other ways to manage the economy. So anyway, very excited. I will keep you posted as developments happen. I'm just glad to see that there's a little bit more movement on this Diem cryptocurrency going on. Well, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.